An extra hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by the man who's always here, Mr. Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I'm now confused. Is this going as the first hello and welcome?
Yes.
But you're saying it's an extra hello and welcome up front?
That's what's happening.
All
right. Because here's what happened. Last night, we recorded a listener question special to publish on Friday, today, which is when this is going out. And I think we said in that show... we hope there's no big breaking news.
And then we laughed and we laughed.
We laughed and we laughed and we laughed. And then, I think after we'd recorded, or maybe mid-recording, Major League Soccer announced a couple of things, actually.
It was after we recorded because I was walking the dogs when you texted me to say, emergency podcast?
So one thing that happened is MLS announced that they're going to be expansion to 28 teams and then beyond. That is interesting news, but I don't think it's worth us breaking that down. You kind of could have seen that coming.
Buzz Lightyear's less popular catchphrase, to 28 teams and then beyond.
The other big thing that happened is Major League Soccer announced they would now be both accepting and giving, paying out and taking in. Training compensation and solidarity payments.
Indeed.
This is not how we thought this would go down, right? We thought that this would be imposed from above by the dispute resolution chamber.
We thought it would be your favorite soccer movie, Kicking and Screaming.
Yes.
Is how we thought this was going to go down.
Instead, what's happened is MLS has basically decided we've invested so much in MLS teams' development academies and we're losing players for free. It seems like there's more money to be made in taking solidarity payments and training compensation, even if we lose it by having to pay it to other teams.
Exactly.
That's the brunt of this,
Yeah,
right?
I think it's basically they're frustrated with losing, the obvious one would be Weston McKennie.
Yeah.
He didn't sign a
Christian
professional.
Pulisic.
Yeah.
Sorry. Christian Pulisic's not a good example.
No.
Because his development academy was PA Classics, which is not an MLS team.
There it is.
And the thing starts to get complicated.
There
Weston McKennie is the best
example.
example.
Stick with Weston McKennie, who had not signed a professional contract yet with FC Dallas, so they weren't entitled to a transfer fee. Travis Clark on the Top Drawer Soccer Show. We talked about it for about 20 minutes on the Friday episode of the Top Drawer Soccer Show.
There's a big detailed breakdown going to be on Top Drawer Soccer. I recommend going and listen to because Taylor did the research, right?
Yeah.
And they recorded today. There's a big breakdown there. We're doing a very short breakdown.
We are.
Yeah.
But in that episode, Travis made the point that the difference between a Weston McKennie and a Chris Richards. Chris Richards had signed with FC Dallas, had signed a pro contract. That's why Bayern Munich had to pay a transfer fee, albeit a small one, to get him. But for a lot of players like Weston McKennie, there isn't any sort of money coming back. So for a lot of MLS Development Academy clubs, they're thinking, we're putting all this money into developing these players, and if they're not signing with our team, why should we keep putting all this money into it? And I think there's an element of we're losing money here. We want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Good examples are Ulysses Yanez and Alex Mendes leaving the LA Galaxy to go to German teams. Freiburg and Werder Bremen, or is it Wolfsburg?
It's one of those.
I want to say Yanez is at Wolfsburg. It's a big deal, right, to lose that high-quality player for nothing. I think the one thing we should get down for people here is what is training compensation and what is solidarity payments, right? Because there are a lot of people who will not know these terms. They're two different things, but they're kind of similar.
So training compensation is a set figure a club must pay when they sign a player to their first pro contract. So the example there would be, I guess we can use Weston McKennie as if Weston McKennie were happening right now. Yeah. So if Weston McKennie left the FC Dallas Academy, went and signed for Schalke, previously, there would have needed to be no money sent to FC Dallas because he hadn't signed a pro deal. Now, the way, if MLS is embracing this, the idea would be that when Weston McKennie signs his pro contract, it is incumbent upon Schalke that they have to pay the clubs who were involved in the development of that player.
Yep.
So they have to look at everybody who was involved from the age, I think, of 12, from the 12th birthday up until the 23rd birthday, if it's a 23-year-old who hasn't signed a pro contract yet. And then basically they calculate who gets what. They have to send it to all those different teams. But that way the players are compensated for the work they put into developing that player.
And what is a solidarity payment?
A club that trained the player is entitled to some of the future transfer, essentially, which is basically that if, again, say, Weston McKennie, FC Dallas...
Say moves to Liverpool.
Exactly. Yeah. Now they're getting, I think, it's all mandated, and there are percentages that have already been kind of set down, but it's basically all of the clubs that contributed to that player's development are entitled to a total of 5% of that transfer fee.
So the total transfer fee, you take a 5% chunk of that.
Exactly.
And then it's distributed amongst the teams that contributed to his development.
Yeah, so
right?
From the season of the 12th...
That could be a lot of money, though, right? Because the transfer fees are going up. Weston McKennie will go for, I want to say, 35 million euros, something like that.
And so if you're a club who maybe had Weston McKennie, not saying this was the case, but if FC Dallas had him from when he turned 12 until when he moved, then they're getting...
So he moved at 16, right?
Then you're getting 100% of that 5%.
Yep.
And so that's a big deal. But if you're a very small club on the outskirts of Dallas Dallas or somewhere else in Texas who maybe trained him when he was 12 and 13, and then he moved to FC Dallas, but you don't have much money and you're not that big of a program. Now suddenly you're getting, I think it's like 0.5% of that 5%. Even so, it's still
a little bit,
it's still a little bit of money that goes along.
That was one of the questions.
Excuse me. That is, you just get 5% of it. My bad.
So the MLS have said that they are they're going to pay training compensation to different homes, and they're going to obviously receive it, which is what they really want. The non-MLS teams. Like US Soccer hasn't ruled on this, right? Only MLS has decided we're doing this. Where does that leave the non-MLS development academies or just, youth clubs?
With which aspect?
Like, do they get training compensation? Do they get solidarity payments?
So they will in the situation like Schalke. It's not FC Dallas that then have to pay the other clubs who they signed.
So MLS won't pass through the income to the other teams.
It's Schalke who have to pay it. I believe the other clubs would have to apply for it. Yeah. And I think it's also based on the player passport. That when Weston McKennie is registered as a Schalke player, they look at all the teams that were involved in his development, which is supposed to be recorded in the passport. It's required that it be so.
And isn't it that we were kind of sloppy in America with the player passports?
100%.
And that's why, like, say, the Bradley and Dempsey cases didn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
but we've got better recently.
Well, and it makes sense because if there's no recourse for getting any money for it, who cares? Why would you?
Oh, that's why it was sloppy.
I mean, that would be my guess, is that if you know you're not going to get money, you're not going to be like, no, I want to be on Michael Bradley's player passport. Like, it doesn't really matter. Whereas now, if you can get money, there's definitely going to be a lot. I did wonder then, like what about ODP teams? Are they going to be like, hey, wait, hold on, we're involved? But it comes down to the clubs that they played for, not like individual organizations or random friendlies.
All right, so we're in danger of like doing a whole show on this here, right? There is a whole show that you did about this with Travis Clark on Top Drawer Soccer. Are there any like major things that we need that just say someone just is too lazy to go and listen to Top Drawer Soccer Show? Come on, people, go listen to it. But if for that person, is there any major thing that we've missed here that maybe we need to let people know?
I think the one like negative to this, the Players Association is against it.
The MLS Players Association,
yeah. But I think the one negative is that MLS will be paying clubs if they sign like a young player out of a foreign academy. They will be getting money if their players are signed. They will not be giving money to like local organizations that they have taken players from. So Seattle, if they take a player at 14, they sign him to a pro contract at 16 or 17 or 18, they're not paying solidarity payments back.
Crossfire, for example, is the local academy, they wouldn't get it. Is that because these rules apply when you move federations, right? When you move countries.
Exactly.
So there's no mechanism to force MLS to pay those teams. Those teams just have to hope that they're on the player passport, and when that player moves on, then maybe they get something in solidarity payments.
And we should add US and Canada for purposes of Major League Soccer.
Yes, so to make it extra complicated.
Which is a negative, and I think... But I also understand why maybe they wouldn't do that, because I could see the counterpoint of if there's a player who leaves the Seattle Academy to go play for Reno 1868 or whatever that team is, or just another, if somebody left and signed for the Richmond Kickers, there could be an argument that the Richmond Kickers have to pay Seattle because he was developed in their system.
Yeah.
And can the Richmond Kickers afford to do that? I don't know. And so I could see both sides of that coin as to why it would have been good, but also why it might have been bad.
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to guess we'll talk more about this in the future. Maybe you with a guest, maybe me and you in the future, because it's a big issue that will slightly change the landscape. We hope it just encourages more MLS development academies to just bring more kids through.
We do indeed.
Keep investing, right?
Keep investing. Keep investing.
All right. And again, for more on this, please go and find Top Drawer Soccer Show. Taylor and Travis go pretty deep on this, right? Like a 20-minute at least conversation. All right. Get ready for drum clicks, music, another hello and welcome, and then some great listener questions. Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who is always a pleasure to share a studio with. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for that. Is that why you're leaving me for a week?
I am taking a few days off from the Total Soccer Show in the
Your
near
English
future.
friends come to town, and suddenly your American friends get thrown by the wayside.
I mean, you're invited to hang out as well.
Nah.
Yeah. So, I want to just say this at the top of the show. Obviously, I'm here today. I may make some little pre-recorded guest appearances on next week's Total Soccer shows, but I won't be fully around. And I'm saying it because I don't want people to worry. It's not because like health has gone wrong or something. It's because health has gone wrong.
Yeah.
A couple of my good friends from England are coming over to visit. So Taylor has very generously said, take those days off, go hang with your friends.
The English me's. Yep, they're coming over. Yes, that's how it works.
Kind of. They are the only people I would say I know as well as you. Outside of my wife and my parents.
Are they going to be bringing you a van, and if you don't like it, they're going to go hide in the woods?
What?
That's Fragile Frankie Merman from Seinfeld is the Summer George. You're welcome for that. You're welcome for that.
Oh,
deep cuts.
They don't know Seinfeld as well as you, and neither do I, it seems. All right, this is also...
by the end of the show, you're going to be like, thank God I get the week off.
Looking forward to it. So we're recording this late Thursday night, right? It's going to be published on Friday. If there's big soccer news on Friday, if Pep Guardiola is the new US men's national team coach, for example, we won't be able to discuss it.
I feel like if that happened, you'd come into the studio.
Probably would.
Yes.
That's an emergency pod ready to happen, right? But today we have 6 listener questions, each more glorious than the last.
Okay. I mean, shots fired at the first question, I guess, then.
Each as glorious as the last.
There we are.
There we go. Today's first question comes from Todd Holloway. Todd wants to know, I love this question, what are the top 3 movies where soccer/football is a major theme and why? And
we removed documentaries, correct?
Yeah, because really the best soccer movies are documentaries, but then it's a long, long list. So we've gone for sort of more narrative things, right? Basically... proper movies.
And let me just say with that in mind...
Let me take that back. I love documentaries, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Fictional movies.
Yeah. With that in mind, get it together, soccer movies. It's not great. It's not a lot. There are not a lot of very automatic selections here. And I will be honest...
Soccer's hard to film. There are reasons for this. I think we should maybe get into this a little bit.
Sure.
The reason there are so many... very soccer-focused soccer movies, like, say, Goal, and they really don't hang together that well as movies. I think soccer's just really hard to film. And also, when you try to capture what's great about soccer, you kind of get it wrong. This is why documentaries are better, because nothing can replicate the actual event of soccer. Once you fake it, you can tell it's fake.
You really can, because you can see the player who's like, oh no, I've gone in for a tackle and it didn't work. Shucks.
And I don't even mean just the action, I really do mean the action, but also the emotions around soccer. If you try and capture that somehow with swelling music, it's not the same as Raheem Sterling scoring in the final minute and then VAR overturning it.
All right. Yeah, I would agree with that. You're not quite getting that drama down.
Nothing's better than the real thing.
No. I would say, to go to my point about bad soccer on screen, Sopranos season 1, the high school girls soccer team, is some of the worst soccer acting ever. There's one where there's a shot and it goes in the goal and then the goalie dives and it's just gee, I wonder if she was told don't save this one so the player can score. It's pretty egregious.
Was Tony fixing the game?
I don't think so, but that's a great question. And a fair question, I think. He wasn't that corrupt at that point. Even though he's in the Mafia, he wasn't that horrible in season 1 as he was in, say, season 6.
Yeah, it's not the ultimate corrupt where you fix soccer matches.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have a theory that the actual best soccer matches aren't really focused on something super soccer related. Soccer movies, sorry. What did I say?
Soccer matches.
Sorry. Yeah, the best soccer matches are very soccer focused. The best soccer movies are, Todd phrases this question well as well, right? Where soccer is a theme. Yeah. But it's not the main thing. It's about characters. It's about relationships. It's the things that make movies good are not the topic, but the content.
Yes, I would agree with that.
That's my general theory of movies.
I would add, because I know we're probably going to hear on this one, and I welcome people's own top 3.
Oh, I look forward to tweets that start with the word no and then your favorite soccer movie and the word question mark. If you send us that tweet, I'm blocking you. We've never blocked anyone. I'm blocking people who send us that tweet.
I mean,
don't even do it as a joke.
I feel like you're going to block some people.
Don't even do it as a joke. I'll really do it.
But I would add that I also haven't seen a lot of soccer movies, I would say. And some of the ones I have, The Big Green from many years ago, I don't have any recollection of that movie, nor did I go back and watch it for the purposes of answering this question. She's All That. I think that's one. She's the Man, I think is one. There's, and Ladybugs. Nah, I'm not watching those. And then there's other ones that Mean Machine I remember really enjoying. Green Street Hooligans I enjoyed when it first came out.
Wood one?
And in retrospect, I'm nah, I'm good on those. So that's kind of where I am in answering this question.
Okay. Would you have 3 that you actually like?
I do.
Yeah, give me one.
I'm going to start off with probably an obvious one for me, Looking for Eric. I do love that movie.
It's on my list as well.
It made my wife want to name our kid Cantona. And what more do you need in a movie? But it really is, it's a movie. It's basically a man down on his luck, estranged from his family.
It's a postman, right? If I remember correctly?
Yes, I believe he inhales some things and starts picturing Eric Cantona who as his kind of imaginary friend. But there are moments where you're but is it imaginary? Is it actually Eric Cantona? Yeah. But it sort of helps him learn life lessons, become a better person. But also along the way, you have those moments of Eric Cantona is just great. Isn't he just great?
I guess it has a special appeal to you as a Man United fan, right? What I really like about it is it takes the sort of icon of Eric Cantona and like all that he represented about like having confidence in yourself and like a sort of arrogance that you can back up. And it's, this character, Steve Ovetz plays him. I can't remember the character's name.
I think his name is Eric.
His name also Eric. Okay, so that's thematically perfect then, right?
Eric the Postman. Yeah.
It's about how like he's lacking all those things. He's lacking confidence in himself, and Eric Cantona represents these things. So it's this perfect use of a soccer figure in a fictional film.
But I feel like because Eric Cantona is sort of weirdly philosophical, or at least like kind of fancies himself a philosopher, it's not quite the montage-y thing you'd expect of like the superstar athlete being like, this is how you be confident. This is how you talk to the women.
Cantona has a special aura, right?
It's much more of a like, no, like as an example, I don't want to spoil it, but like there's the scene where he talks about his favorite moment in the history of his career, Eric Cantona, and it's not what you think, and it is very like metaphorical for the purposes of the movie.
I think I know what it is, but you don't want to spoil it.
I don't want to spoil it. But I just like, I appreciate that it's not just him being like, you must be confident, and in a very kind of like bloviating way.
Yes.
It's just sort of, it's much more subdued. I love that movie very much.
Directed by Ken Loach, really great sort of English director of working class type films.
There we go.
So also, it's not on my list because it's not really a soccer themed movie. But you know the movie Kess? It's about a kid who's got a rough life, I think in Yorkshire, and he has a kestrel, like a bird that he sort of, that's his escape from his rough life. Part of his rough life is there's a great soccer scene. It's not a soccer themed movie. I think it's also directed by Ken Loach, which is why I bring it up, where the physical ed teacher, PE teacher that we call them in England, plays in the game in phys ed and kind of starts taking over the game and commentating and essentially bullying the kids by being really good at soccer. He's essentially the Thierry Henry from what we've heard from Alexander Golovin. But if you can see that scene, that's a really good scene.
All right. So that's looking for Eric. For me, what about for you?
For me, I've gone with a very strange one. Kicking and Screaming.
I knew you were going to put that in there.
Kicking and Screaming, the Will Ferrell movie. Yeah. It's genuine. Like if it wasn't about
that movie,
if it wasn't about soccer, if it was just I don't know Step Brothers or whatever, I think it's on the level with those great Will Ferrell movies.
Really?
It's a great Will Ferrell movie. Yeah.
All right. Is it just because at the core of it is give it to the Italians? They know what to do.
Well, no. I think at the core of it is there's a proper story of a man who starts off very meek and through getting these two Italian kids on his team becomes very, very arrogant as a coach. And he's got the cappuccino machine on the sideline. And he's getting like wilder and wilder. He ends up telling who's the famous football coach who's in it.
Oh, Mike Ditka, I think.
Mike Ditka sort of as his assistant, and he ends up just yelling at him to go and fetch him a juice box. It is such a good movie. And also the soccer stuff it's kind of good soccer lessons in terms of don't just rely on your star players. It's about putting a proper team together. I really like that message, essentially.
It is the kind of old school, like, oh, even this kid who like was weird, but he has this one like special ability, it turns out. It's not quite the like, we don't really care about winning. We just want every kid to improve, which I think is probably more so the modern story of youth soccer. And
it's genuinely funny. And there's two good father-son relationships, right, at the core of the movie, right? There's Ferrell's relationship with his kid and then his relationship with his dad, who I think is Robert Duvall.
That could be.
Yeah.
Robert Duvall is everyone's father.
Yeah.
and should be.
Kicking and Screaming, genuinely funny movie. Yeah. Soccer's a big theme.
One that I'm going to guess is on your list, but I'm putting it on mine as well, is The Damned United.
Yes.
That's definitely on there for me.
That was my third and final movie.
This
is a weird one, right?
It was my second, so there you go.
Because it's about historical events, but it's also, because of the way the book was written, it's kind of... They've messed with the narrative to make it a better narrative, essentially.
I'm noticing a theme in mine. Mine are all English. But for me, it was insight into the 1970s, which is like a period you can hear about, you can read about, you can hear about English soccer in the 70s and maybe see a little bit of footage, and like you'll see documentaries. So it was nice to kind of see the actual atmosphere of Brian Clough winning with Derby and then what he had when he walked into Leeds and what that experience was like for him.
Yeah.
But just sort of the kind of culture around soccer at the time was really interesting, and sort of the change of like from like Derby County not wanting to spend a lot of money and him sort of pressuring the owner and pushing him to like spend these figures, to sort of the way it's going at the end of that movie and like the way he's going with it. It's insight into things that I wasn't familiar with in a way that made them slightly more approachable.
Okay, I like it because Brian Clough, the real person, is kind of this iconic character who could have been someone that was like a character in a movie. And there's this great performance from Michael Shane that really gets the essence of Brian Clough, right?
Yes.
And I think the great thing about that movie is it gets the essence of what I understand about Brian Clough's time at Leeds United, the Damned United, where he just things did not go well for him. That's no spoiler, right? Because you kind of know that going in. So it messes with historical facts, but gets the essence of it, which I think is a great movie.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think it's Michael Sheen, right? I always get that one wrong. Definitely not Martin Sheen. Probably not Charlie Sheen. But he is excellent in it, and I think it's one of my like first experiences with him in a non like playing a werewolf movie. But like it's he is the perfect actor for that role because he has like the charm and wit to pull it off, but he has like the vulnerability as well. Now we're getting into like movie critiques, but I love his performance in it. But I also just love that it kind of, again, shows you the roots of English soccer in that it's about, you know, like there's certain ways to do it and there's certain ways that you're not supposed to do it. And just that idea has been there for decades, if not a century. It's a fascinating look.
Have you named 3 and I've named 3?
I've named 2.
Okay, who's your third one then? Because that's mine, right? The Damned United, looking for Eric, and kicking and screaming.
It's going to be controversial because I don't have Victory in mine because I
can't remember if it's good or not.
That's the thing. I haven't seen Victory since I was probably 13 years old, and I would be okay with seeing it. It's just not a movie that I'm ever like, you know what I want to sit down and watch is Victory.
Do you know in the UK it's called Escape to Victory?
I did know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if they thought maybe it was a spoiler, so they didn't put it in the US.
Maybe it's because in the real story, don't they not escape? In the real story, aren't they? I think they're all killed.
Honestly, it's a movie we could do with right now because it's about how to beat Nazis.
Yes, that's a very good point. But what I'm saying is I think that maybe that's why they put Escape in is because after initial screenings when people were like, wait, do they actually survive? I know historically they don't.
So maybe it's like a misdirect.
So Escape to Victory is, so they definitely escape.
Is it a problem like, wasn't there the train movie with, I want to say Denzel Washington and Chris Pine called Unstoppable? Yeah. But I haven't seen the movie, and so
it's stoppable.
Possible story alert?
Yes.
Possibly stoppable.
Yes. Possibly stoppable. Should have been the title. My third one is Bend It Like Beckham, which is probably going to get me a lot of stick, but I don't care. And
I saw it and enjoyed it. Again, it's not about soccer, really. It's about Keira Knightley's character, right?
No, it's about Jessamine de Bambra. How dare you? How dare you? Keira Knightley's like the supporting female lead.
You're right. I'm really sorry. That's correct.
Yeah, get out of here.
It's been a long time since I saw it.
But that's why I liked it, because as silly as it is, have you seen that meme of like the way Americans see the British versus the way Europe sees the British? So it's like the way Americans see the British, and it's all very handsome men in like 3-piece suits sitting around a table. Yeah. And then the way Europe sees them, and it's just a bunch of passed out people in the street.
Yeah.
With like sirens flashing. Yeah, but that exactly. But this was kind of that for me, as strange as it sounds, is like I grew up with that idea of like Ross from Friends falls in love with the English woman who's very proper and charming, and like that's what
Helen Baxendale?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, and then like Hugh Grant, like you have these ideas of these like the Brits are all very charming and sophisticated, and like she has an incident in the movie on the field where somebody calls her an ethnic slur, and I remember being like, wait, what? Like there's racial tension in England? I thought that was only here. Like it really was this weird sort of, again, as I talked about, The Damned United was an insight into like 70s English culture and 70s soccer culture. There's a little bit of that here where it's like I honestly, whatever age I was, maybe 14 or 15, like wasn't aware of the sort of geopolitical immigration tensions in England at the time with Indian and Pakistani communities in the country. So that was really interesting. And then also, you know, having the dad try to explain offside. That was fascinating.
I need to rewatch this movie. I can't remember much about it.
I think I fell in love with Keira Knightley there. That definitely happened. But it was also...
I learned how to say Santa Clara.
Yes, every single time. It makes me laugh. And then I think it also probably raised women's... Like, it kind of helped like raise awareness about women's soccer as well. That like, there are leagues in England, but like there's only options to play college soccer and pro soccer in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And that's no longer the case.
They couldn't make that movie now, right?
Nope.
Because you've got the league,
Or they could, but they'd probably be coming back to play in the professional leagues in England. There you go.
All right, so we've each named our 3. We recommend all 6 of those movies and maybe Escape to Victory.
But it did make me sad. Yes, it did make me sad because it was the season after David Beckham, I think, had left for Madrid. And I was like, now they're making a movie about him? I want him to be the most famous player while playing for Man United. It wasn't meant to be. Next question comes from Joseph McGregor, who asks, how many kids on a team are too many at once? Disclaimer, I read this and thought he literally meant like, how many youth players should you have on a squad?
On Will Ferrell's team.
And I watched recently.
You need 2 Italians, a kid with glasses.
We talked about this recently, and then it happened again. I think it was a new one. It was 3 Japanese internationals against, I think it was 30 10-year-olds.
Oh,
it was another one of those with like 8 goalkeepers. It was terrific. So I was like, is that what this question's about? But I realized, talking to you, and by I realized, I mean you told me, not quite what we're going for here.
Well, sometimes I edit these questions down as well. In the longer version of this question, Joseph basically explains it. He's talking about like, for example, he doesn't say this, but like in MLS, like FC Dallas have a bunch of kids playing right now. It's not a full 11 of kids, but like at what point does the experience become not worth it for the young players if it's just all young players? Right? So where is the ideal balance? Obviously, the answer is it depends, but we're going to try and drill down into a rough estimation of what the best ratio is.
I don't know if this is even like more helpful than it depends, but I think a big part of it is like physicality, I think does factor into this for me. That on the Continent, the soccer podcast that we enjoy,
yeah, it's good, right?
They were talking about like how Ajax have been able to do what they've done in the Champions League, and one of the things they were pointing out is a player like Matthias de Ligt, who is 19 years old, is 6'2" and weighs about 200 pounds. Like that is not very common for a 19-year-old, but it is what allows him to be the center back he is. If he's 19 years old and 5'11" and kind of skinnier, but he's on his way, I don't think you back him as much to win challenges against Ronaldo, even though he didn't win that first one, but to then win them against Ronaldo and Bonucci and Rugani and whomever else. Yeah, exactly. So I think there is an element of if the player is physically to a point where
you're big enough, you're old enough.
Yeah, kind of. That's a big part of it.
So are you saying that like a team of like solidly built 17, 18-year-olds is okay?
I mean, as long as the technical ability is there. But
yeah.
I guess that's what I mean is like I think you can have a few players who are like, not trying to throw shade or anything, but like you can have a Gianluca Busio. You can't have 11 Gianluca Busios.
Yeah.
It's a size thing, and I don't mean just to say that like, oh, like, you know, only big people can win soccer. It's just that you're not going to win set pieces. You're going to get knocked off the ball legally because a 16-year-old who is slight of frame is going to be knocked off the ball by a 30-year-old who is not.
What about just in terms of that veteran experience there? Because I think the perfect mix still needs, I mean, you know, I'm a play your kids guy in many, many, many ways. I still think you need 2 or 3 players who are like have been around for like 10 years or more, and they just know all the little tricks and can actually, and I'm just talking about winning a game, I'm talking about what's valuable for youngsters playing the game, to learn things from the more experienced players. And it might be just little things like stand in front of a free kick after you concede it so they can't take it quickly. You know what I mean? Those little almost dirty tricks that the older players know that younger players might not.
I mean, I would agree with that, but I would extend it slightly further. I think that like it's the case that when you're a teenager, like you're not fully developed, not just size-wise, as I already talked about, but like mentally. Like you're still figuring stuff out. You're learning new ways to think and new ways to be. And I do think that even if you have a very mature team of 18-year-olds, in a clutch moment, in a very high-pressure situation, I do think that there's going to be different behavior, and you do need a veteran who's been there to be like, hey, just calm it down. Like, because I think you can have that 18-year-old...
just clear it.
Yeah. You can have that 18-year-old central midfielder who, in every situation, is super composed, but if that player maybe does lose it a little bit because they're 18 in a high-stress environment, then maybe the whole team does. So I do think you're right that you need an older player around or a couple older players around to maybe balance it out and just kind of keep those calm heads, ideally. All
right, just to throw it out there then, here's my ratio. I think the ideal scenario for the maximum number of youngsters on the field is 2 actual veterans, as in like 30-ish years old, right? Okay. 31 years old. 2 peak career players. And peak now is like 25, right? Something like that. Peak is really mid to early 20s when you're like experienced enough, but like physically superior in terms of the rest of your career, super fit, and then the rest can be kids. So that's 4 non-kids and 7 kids. 2 peak players, 2 veterans, 7 kids.
Where are you putting goalie in there?
I don't know. It depends. I sort of don't care. I'm really just talking about who's experienced and who knows things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what
Donnarumma can play, right?
I'm trying to think what I would want in a team, and I think it's probably somewhere like in the 28 to 30 plus range. I could see 2. I'm with you on that one. In the like 24 to 27 range, I could see probably 4.
Oh, okay.
So then I think I'm looking at fewer. I'm probably looking
so you're
at
saying
4.
5 kids.
Yeah, but then I think like it's not strange. I think 5 kids, but I think it wouldn't be strange to see a team of 5 23-year-olds or thereabouts.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not that big bold of a statement. Maybe I'll go with your numbers 2, 3, and 7, right?
It depends
my math is bad.
2, 2, and 7.
There we go.
2, 3, and 7 would win a game for sure.
2, 3, and 6 is I think what I'm going to go for.
Okay,
there we go.
Yeah. I mean, it also depends on what Joseph's question, exactly what he means by kids. Does he mean under 21? Does he mean under 18?
It's a very good question.
Does he mean under 24?
Yeah, like Onana for Ajax, I think is 22 years old, a goalkeeper. Is he a kid? I don't know.
For a goalkeeper, yes, right? Goalkeeper's weird.
This is the question.
Yeah.
This is the question.
Do we answer that fully?
Vaguely, I think, but I think as fully as you can for a question that really does beg the answer depends.
Depends.
Yes.
As many as possible in Major League Soccer. How about that? Okay. Today's show is sponsored by Simple Contacts. You heard about them a couple of days ago. Simple Contacts are sponsoring the Total Soccer Show.
They sure are. And they're sponsoring you, right, Daryl Grove? Specifically your vision.
Yes. Well, I'm wearing glasses as we speak, but when I play soccer or just want to look my best.
Were you concerned that I didn't know that you were wearing glasses?
I thought maybe you needed glasses or contacts.
Not yet. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I get my contacts through Simple Contacts. The reason I do is because it's nice and easy.
Okay.
It's essentially because I'm slightly lazy, but that's kind of why this works.
One of the best phrases I've ever learned from Always Sunny in Philadelphia is, it seems like a whole thing. I use it all the time. My wife and I use it all the time.
Yeah.
And
so what, booking an appointment to the optician?
It seems like a whole
going
thing.
to the optician,
Yeah.
waiting at the optician,
Yeah.
doing the whole thing, paying the optician at the end, then waiting for your contacts to arrive. Yeah, that's a whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that said, I think I'll use it if she's like, hey, can you bring me a drink? I'll be like, nah, it seems like a whole thing. but
that's
yes,
abusing it.
But yes, going to the doctor, making the appointment, going to the doctor, being there, going through the
reading magazines from 3 months ago.
I've only had to experience this once. I don't even know if it's a thing that really happens that much, but the like, is this better or worse? Better or worse? That just seeing someone do that gives me anxiety.
Why?
Because it just, like, I would feel that need to be like, I don't know. I think it was better. I think I would overthink and overanalyze.
So I have to just make myself make decisions there. And sometimes I think, maybe I got the wrong one there, but we'll get there eventually.
But this is why I want a vision test that's 10 feet away from me, and I can just kind of read the letters. Hopefully I get it right, and if not, then they're going to let me know that I need a prescription or a new prescription.
So here's how it works. If your prescription is current, you can just use Simple Contacts to order your contacts online, and then they arrive at your house, right? If your prescription needs renewing, then instead of visiting the optician, you can renew it using the Simple Contacts website or app. You just have to stand 10 feet away. You do the vision test, assuming that your vision is good and your prescription can be renewed. Then Simple Contacts will renew your prescription for you. A doctor will properly do it. And then you can order your contacts.
You can. Worth noting there, they have all the brands and types of lenses you're familiar with. So it's not like you have to switch everything up and Simple Contacts is only a specific type. You have everything you need to get your vision done.
I can speak from experience that, I originally did this. I was like, I wonder if they've got mine. Focus Dailies, by the way. And obviously they had them. So they do have all the brands that you love.
So you can take that vision test. It's only
Unless
$20.
you love some weird brand where they're like made of sandpaper. They don't stock those ones.
That would not be effective.
No,
those
terrible.
would be the I don't know who some character in Game of Thrones has forced somebody else to wear those.
Yeah, probably Ramsay Bolton again.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't do the Ramsay Bolton contacts. They do all the proper ones.
So the vision test is only $20. You compare it to the appointment without insurance, could be up to $200. And then you can get your contacts nice and easy. And best of all, because Simple Contacts are with the Total Soccer Show and vice versa, you can get your contacts at an even better price. You can get $20 off your contacts at simplecontacts.com/TSS20 or enter the code TSS20 at checkout.
And we will put those links in the show notes if you can't remember them, or if your vision's really bad, put the phone close to your face, but then renew your prescription and get some contacts.
You definitely should. You should also remember this is not a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. You still need one of those, but you can get your contacts for cheaper with Simple Contacts.
Thank you to Simple Contacts for sponsoring today's show.
Indeed. More questions, Daryl Grove.
All right.
Where shall we go next?
Let's go to Jesse Frankel's question. Jesse wants to know, he gives us 3 options here. Of these 3 seemingly impossible soccer changes in the United States, which do you think is the most likely to happen in the next 10 years? Here are the 3 options. Pro Rel. Major League Soccer switching to a European schedule, meaning like what, August to May.
Yep.
Or college soccer, NCAA, going to a proper fall-spring soccer schedule. So instead of just mostly the fall schedule that they do now. Which of these 3 seemingly impossible things is most likely to happen in the next 10 years, and which is the least likely?
I'm going to cheat here a little bit because the specific type of pro rel was not defined. I think pro rel is the most likely to happen. I don't think that means Major League Soccer is going to incorporate pro rel, but I think we're not too long away from USL Championship, USL League One, probably another one when you get more teams expanding. I think we're probably not far away from USL having probably 3 tiers with pro rel between them.
I think that is also the case. So what USL, the Championship has a bunch of teams.
Yep.
USL League One right now only has 10 teams, right? So they need to essentially expand to, and they obviously do plan to expand because this is the first year in existence for USL League One. Once that expands and everybody's set to go, I think they've hinted that, they haven't promised, but they've very strongly hinted that it's a strong possibility we will do pro rel between USL Championship and USL League One. Yeah. We also we were talking to a friend today who pointed out that most of the USL League One teams, even though the sanctioning for third-tier US soccer sanctioning only requires a certain size stadium, USL is having those teams build a stadium that is of a size that is acceptable for Division 2 sanctioning.
Exactly, yeah.
So they're setting it up ready to go, I think, eventually. And I think in the next 10 years, it's probably a good goal. I would say in the next 6 years, maybe.
I think
no inside knowledge, but just
I think that's possible, and I honestly think that is way more likely than the other two. I have like that as number one, and then I really had a tough time between the second two because it seems like the easiest one to make happen would be college going to fall spring because they need to do something to kind of stay a little bit more current, to maybe keep people around, to develop players longer so that it becomes once again a more viable place for players to go to be developed.
I want to ask you this. Assuming they could do it, are we fully sure it's definitely a net positive? I can't see any downside to doing it. I know reasons why it can't happen or reasons it's tough to make it happen, but is there any downside to it?
I mean, you're definitely making it clear at that point that they're not going to school. That like if you're making it a full season,
in terms of soccer, but
like then it is sort of tougher to be like, it's an amateur thing, but they play year round. Like I think that is definitely maybe a little bit more debatable. And I also think that given. Like, I guess this doesn't quite answer your question, but I think the major drawback is that you have so many other sports and you have multi-sport athletes that I think you'd run into that kind of headache.
You lose some people.
Yeah, when are you scheduling these sports and how are you making them occur? And then are you taking time away and field space away from other activities? Are you taking funding away from other activities to make soccer that much longer? And I think maybe they'll do it because, like, college soccer has gone the way it has, but I think also that's an argument for why they wouldn't do it. Is it sort of like, why would we do all of these dramatic changes for a thing that might not necessarily make that much of a difference for people playing college soccer?
Yeah, I think it would be good for soccer as a whole,
but
maybe wouldn't be good for college soccer in terms of the athletes themselves or the health of schools financially and all that kind of stuff.
And then we go to European schedule, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. I really
Why not?
don't. I think, first of all, we heard Sunil Gulati when he was still president talk about this, and he sort of, as Sunil Gulati was wont to do, very dismissively shot this one down, but more than just his usual, like, no, that's just not going to happen. Like, I think one of the first things he said was like, you're going to play in Minnesota in February? You're going to play in Minnesota in December? Like, you have a lot of cold weather teams, and I think it makes it really, really hard. I think they don't want to compete with the National Football League. Ask the USFL how that went. Again, that's a little bit different because it's the same sport, but I think there's a risk of losing audience that Major League Soccer does not want to go down. They don't want to battle that. And I think just to make the season not even necessarily longer, but to make it half in one year, half in another, I think it's just a weird concept when it comes to American sports.
Oh, I see. Yeah, just for American public to grasp. I don't think that's necessarily a major obstacle because so many soccer fans in America are soccer fans in general.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's true.
The pre-existing crowd will definitely accept it and possibly embrace it.
I mean, and the Super Bowl, for example, is in January or February. So it's not like it's never happened before.
Is an answer to the Minnesota question, for example, just that it's obviously a huge infrastructure upgrade and maybe this is not really financially feasible, but just have a bunch of teams with covered stadiums.
I mean,
right? And then you can get around it.
I suppose so. But you're still going to, you're going to have 10 feet of snow at times? Can you get to the stadium? Can teams fly into those places? Like, I think that is a bigger issue than it might seem, even if it seems like I'm sort of nitpicking here by being like, weather's a factor, but weather is a factor.
Could we do just a winter break? Or is it just it's too deep because it goes January, February, as opposed to a couple of weeks like Germany has?
I think so. I think that's probably going to be the downside to it as well. Right. But I really do think what it comes back to is that Major League Soccer, I don't think they can afford to do it right now. And that's why, because you're already having issues with crowd size this season. It's been a very reported issue that a lot of teams are not doing well when it comes to average attendance. And I think that's once we get into summer and kids are out of school, I think that ticks up a little bit and you'll see an increase in attendance. I think when you have major competitions,
so they kind of benefit from playing in the summer.
I think they do, and I think that if you
switch immediately
that,
cash in on the World Cup. For one example,
you can expect, I think, to get people for like a 5 p.m. kickoff on a Wednesday in the summer. Certainly more people than you would get at 5 p.m. on a Wednesday in October.
What about, here's my next pitch, not switching to a European schedule, but switching to a South American style schedule of like Apertura, Clausura, but we make like maybe one of those seasons a bit longer or shorter than the other.
My honest answer to that...
So you just have at least a break in the summer. So there's like, here's one season, here's the summer, however long that may be, here's the rest of the season.
I would say my honest answer to that, not to say that my other answers aren't honest, but more so that this is just like my gut answer, is like, I think that system is confusing to people who aren't used to it. Having two systems and when is there pro-rel and which one matters more and do they both matter the same? I think that one is so fundamentally different to a lot of American sports that I think it would be a much tougher sell because you're kind of restructuring the way like sports in this country have operated.
It's unfamiliar to non-Hispanic soccer fans.
That's
It's
true.
still very familiar to maybe the majority of soccer fans in the United States.
That could be. Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. But I'm speaking from my experience.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I
find it confusing.
Yeah.
Like, trying to tabulate, so which team's the champion?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is maybe just that, we play our adult league year. We have a fall season. We have a spring season. Maybe it's just that. But I think the argument then becomes, do people care as much if they're the fall 2018 champions? If 2 months later it's a whole new season and doesn't matter as much, and now you don't get the bragging rights, and but the spring season doesn't really matter. It's the fall one that does. And I could just see those obstacles, because again, I think Major League Soccer is not one to be like, all right, we're going to do radical change. We're going to try radical solutions and just try things out and see what happens. I think it is very much more so slow to adapt, because I think they don't want to change too much too fast.
Okay. All right. I think we're answered there.
I think so.
You saying that's which is the least likely?
European schedule.
European schedule is the least likely.
Yeah,
okay.
Then college goes fall, spring. I think most likely in the next 10 years is some form of promotion relegation. Weird to say.
What if we took pro rel to mean every, US soccer opens up the whole pyramid, not just the USL version. We're talking proper pro rel, if that's what Jesse means. Then which is the most likely?
I guess college goes fall, spring.
It's the most possible, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even that is kind of unlikely, which I guess is the premise of the question, so it's okay.
Strangely, I feel like maybe this is totally wrong. I feel like the only way pro rel happens in the way that you're describing is if something goes wrong. I equate it with when...
we failed to qualify for the World Cup?
No, I mean more so the
MLS business
the
model.
Basketball joke of when interest waned, they tried interleague play. When that novelty wore off, they tried intersport play.
Yeah,
I think there's something to desperation of look, we're losing attendance, people don't care. Pro rel's happening. I think that's when you might see it, is if they're that's the only thing that would force Major League Soccer's hand. I think
surprise emergency Don Garber press conference.
Yeah, aside from FIFA coming in and saying, never mind, we are going to make you have pro rel, and they're not going to do that.
Okay. All right, final question on this that I want to put to you. Do you think...
You just want my voice to be destroyed.
I'm sorry. Do you think the sort of the pro rel crowd, who are very vocal on Twitter, for example, will accept USL pro rel as the thing that they've been waiting for, or does it need to be the entire open system?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Because I think that they'll be happy that there's pro rel.
Yeah.
I think that there will be... First of all, I think that it's not to say that everybody in the pro rel camp is on board the exact same page.
Yeah.
You've got 40 different plans for how it should work, and I think people feel very strongly about a lot of those. So I think you'll have some who will be like, yeah, this is great. I'm a USL fan now. I'm a USL fan until
it
Major
might
League Soccer.
attract people to the league, right? To be like, okay, I'm all in on this league because they're at least doing it.
But I think there are probably some who are 100% or 0%. And if you're not going to do it all the way, then I'm not going to be involved. And I think it also, if it feels like it's marketing, if it feels like it's a gimmick, if it feels like they're only doing
Come see the crazy pro rel.
Yeah, then I think it's...
Bring a cow, get him free. Crazy pro rel.
Yeah, I think people are resistant to corporate change versus organic. We're doing this because it makes sense change.
Yeah. And the reason I would like it is I think because USL has this quite tight relationship with MLS, I think USL having some sort of pro rel is at least incrementally inching us closer to maybe MLS, maybe just absorbing USL and then having pro rel that way.
Yeah.
It's possible, right?
I mean, because I know we're beating a dead horse here and people probably don't need to hear this, but the league we play in, if you finish first, you get promoted, and it's genuinely an exciting thing. It's a thing that you're constantly paying attention to.
You mean? Yeah.
You're monitoring the standings of every other team to see what they did this weekend, and they only won by 1 goal, and they needed 3 to close that goal. You really care about it when you're playing in it.
Oh, can I put a quick plug in here? If you want to hear our suggestions for how pro rel could be implemented, we did a whole show late last year, maybe 2017. It got a really good response, right? So we put out a detailed plan. I will put a link to that show in today's show notes. If you haven't heard it, you want to go find it. Our pro rel plans are available for you to listen or re-listen.
There we are. All right. So we've answered all the simple questions. Just kidding. We got a big one coming. The big question comes from Joe Jadlowski, who asks, if you were to create a European Super League that was completely closed off, no promotion relegation, which teams would you...
It's the opposite of the last question.
It is indeed. Which would you put in this European Super League? So it's been much discussed, much mooted. Is this going to happen? We're kind of taking this as if UEFA decide we're going to have a Super League, it's just going to be an actual league. Yep.
Honestly, UEFA would not decide. It would be the clubs breaking away from UEFA to do it, right?
Better point. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so Joe also said, look, we can make it as many teams as we want, and we can sort of have our own criteria. We decided to make it, 18 teams to make it as elite as possible. Would the elite play in the Elite League?
Obviously would. But it's also the case that I think I had it as 20. You made the point correctly that, but if they're doing this, it's like they want to make it easier. They want fewer games so they can stretch it out, make those games matter more. And I think, or at least maybe they would do 20.
Keep their players fit for the World Cup.
But I think 18 is a good starting point.
So we'll say 18. And I think what we're going to do is make it, in terms of criteria, obviously this league is designed to make as much money as possible. So it's got to be big teams. But we also want to add a little bit of historical significance is worth a lot.
I mean, cynically, I think it's also the case that UEFA or these breakaway teams, they do still have that idea of, for example, I'll jump in and say like AC Milan is going to be in this league. Inter Milan is going to be in this league because of the historical ramifications of that team. We talked about it on yesterday's show with the Ballon d'Or winners.
Yep.
Like they're definitely
Napoli's
in this league.
a better team right now, but Milan and Inter probably have a better chance.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Should I put them in then? Do you agree?
Here's the weird thing, right? Right now, the top 4 leagues, we talked about this on yesterday's show with UEFA coefficient, the top 4 leagues all get 4 spots in the Champions League. If we give it to those 16 teams, that's most of this league done.
Yeah.
That's tough, right? So we've got to be selective.
We do.
So I want to start with the very, very obvious ones, Barcelona and Real Madrid.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Barcelona and Real Madrid. And that's the only 2 Spanish teams I want in there right now because we only have 18.
Okay.
Fair? Okay.
I would say the same for Bayern Munich. Are we putting Dortmund in there or no?
I think not on first pass, right?
Okay, not on first pass.
We did this similarly with the Premier League,
Yeah.
right? If there's a cut-off Premier League or a close-shot Premier League, first pass needs to be really set the bar super, super high, right?
Now, yes, I agree. Part of where I came up with like Milan is that they were a club that was included in these conversations previously when we heard about some of the clubs that have been rumored.
Yeah.
And it does feel like that's you all aren't having the best of times, but it's AC Milan, you have the history, we want you involved. My question would be, are PSG in there or are PSG too new money?
I think PSG have got to be in there.
Okay.
Yeah, because they are too new money and they may be cheating, financial fair play and all that. But yeah, let's put PSG in there.
Okay.
I would also say, speaking of Italian teams, I'm not prepared to put Milan or Inter in on first pass because they're currently not that good. But obviously I am prepared to put Juventus.
See, I guess I'm trying to approach this a bit more cynically than you are of what would these breakaway clubs do, and they would put those 2 in.
But we're doing
hold
it,
off
right?
for now.
We're the commissioners here. We're the co-commissioners. So I count 5 teams so far.
I'm removing myself from this entirely. This is like theoretical fake Taylor doing this because I would not put PSG in here, but whatever.
Okay.
Yes. So we've got Juventus then. I think they have to be in, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So that leaves us with like those big ones from the continent. Should we go to England real fast?
Yeah, this is the tough one, right? Because there's so many English teams that kind of deserve to be in there, but also if it's only 18, you can't have them all in there.
Should I go ahead and write in Wolves? I'm just kidding. Get out of here.
I wish. Honestly, I'm not saying this because you're a Man United fan. I think Man United have to go in there first because they're the biggest brand, and they have this European history, right? 68, 99.
Yep.
Did they win it again? 2008, yeah.
I would put City in there as well because they've got the money, they've got Pep Guardiola, they've got that branding as well.
I guess if PSG's going in, then Man City's going in, right?
And then Liverpool, I definitely you have to put in there.
Now it gets tough, right? Because Arsenal, I don't think have ever won the Champions League. Huge team.
Wow.
Spurs, I'm almost scared of what Arsenal Spurs fans are going to say if we have one but not the other. So
I will say,
can we leave them both out for now and come back to it so that people don't get mad at us?
That's fine. I do think in the one that if it were likely to happen or is going to happen, I don't think Tottenham would be in there. I do think Arsenal would be in there.
Really?
I think it's the weird
even with Tottenham's new stadium.
I think maybe that's enough.
But the beer comes from the bottom.
But I think that true. But I just think that they're not this I want to go back to. I think it is going to be a old school, who was really good in the 90s and who has that sway is going to be in this league, as annoying as it sounds.
In terms of actually winning the trophy, maybe Chelsea have a better argument than either of them. Are you prepared to put them in?
I mean, we can add them to the maybe on the second pass.
Okay, so first pass so far we have Barca, Madrid, Bayern, PSG, Juventus, Man United, Man City, new money, PSG, Man City, and Liverpool.
So we have 8 teams so far.
Oh, okay. I don't know where to go next. Ajax, yes, for history and for just being really good right now.
All right.
And we assume they sell a bunch of players. There's a bunch of Sergino Dests coming through to keep them great in the future.
Are we putting a Russian team in here? Because that does feel like a thing that would happen. There would be a Russian team, but I don't know which one it would be, and I don't know which one. I get my gut is to say Zenit, but
I strongly dislike Vladimir Putin, so I'm going to leave Russian teams out to punish Vladimir Putin.
That's fair.
And if he comes and asks why, I would say, why are you in Crimea? And don't pretend you're not, because you are.
Wow. And then you'd be murdered, I think, is how that would probably play out. Okay, cool.
But at least he wouldn't have teams in the Champions League.
Cool. All right, so Daryl's dead. That's a shame.
So what about Benfica? Huge.
Yeah,
European
we haven't gone
history.
Portugal yet.
Yeah. Huge European history.
So it'd be one of
decent team right now.
It'd be one of I think they're top of the table. It's either Benfica or Porto.
But they're in the Europa League right now,
third.
as an example.
So, and that is the thing. It's like they don't necessarily have that like Porto maybe would be the one that has come the closest most recently, and that was under Jose Mourinho way back when. So if we're
and quarterfinals this time round. So maybe should we put Porto in there right now?
I'm good with that. Yeah, we'll go Porto.
As our one Portuguese rep.
My God, so many people are so mad about this. So Porto is the 10th team.
I want to apologise to everybody in the whole world right now.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay, here's a big one. I'm going to make the case for Celtic and Rangers.
Oh boy,
huge teams, gigantic fan bases, both in Scotland and around the world. Been sort of like starved of being able to be the big teams that they are in terms of their competition. This is this would be their last chance at sort of becoming globally dominant again, is to become part of the European Superleague.
All right, and this is where our European Super
I want you
Leagues-
to just choose one of them.
This is where you know who I'd pick. Our European Super Leagues are going to split, I think, because again, I'm a bit more like, I feel like if they were doing this, and you're not really taking that approach, which is fine, but I feel like if they were doing this, the other powers that be would say, like, you have to prove that you can spend $200 million a season or something. Like, you have to prove that you can kind of keep up and you're not just in this to make money off of us.
So you're saying no one Celtic and Rangers at first pass?
I mean,
I'm okay if you say no. You say no.
But if we're going for like strictly historic reasons,
yeah. First British team to win the Champions League. Cup, Celtic.
You know I'm a Rangers fan. I would put Celtic in there. I think it's probably Celtic. If you're picking one of the two, it's probably Celtic. I'm not sure they should be because, I mean, they don't even make the group stage on occasion.
Okay, so on current strength, let's leave them out.
Okay. Yeah. All right. First, we can leave them on the maybe list. Okay. That's what I'm going to say.
So now, is there any country that we haven't touched on here? Like Belgium probably doesn't have any big enough.
That's what I'm very scared of. I keep trying to go through, like, who have we missed?
Portugal, Spain, Italy, France. Who else?
I mean, Greece, Turkey. We've left off.
Oh, there are so many big teams. Do we have? We need a team from. So who's the dominant Greek team? It's Olympiakos, right?
I would assume so.
They've won more titles.
I'm going to say it's Olympiakos. Yeah,
but are they like bigger than say Chelsea or Arsenal or Spurs?
I don't think so. I don't think they'd be in there.
I think I'm leaning away from my initial instinct to try and be as inclusive as possible.
Yeah.
And we're going to end up putting a bunch of the big teams in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I honestly don't think Porto would even be in there, but I'm happy to put them in there just for purposes of having something different.
Okay. Roma.
Yeah, Roma's in there.
Roma's in. Okay. I don't know why that just came to me. I just saw Totti in my head and decided no Totti, no party. Roma's in the European Super League.
Roma's in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can have 4 Italian teams,
11.
but I do think if you're going to put... I think the reality is if they did this, it would be Juve, Inter, and AC, as I've said before. Yep. I'm okay with Roma being in there. Are we putting one of Inter and Milan in there?
Let's put both in.
Okay.
I'm swayed now that maybe just these big teams need to go in. Also, we'll be here all night, right? If Milan and Inter are in...
Arsenal's definitely in.
Arsenal has to be in. I think Spurs have a strong shout with that new stadium. They're in the Champions League semi-finals right now, and Harry Kane plays for them.
All right, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to get ourselves out of this jam. We're going to say...
We're in a jam.
Here's what we're going to do. Ready?
Yeah.
This is happening this season. After the end of this season, this league is going into effect.
Yeah.
And if you're still going to... Even if you're going to be a breakaway league, you're still going to have to abide by FIFA and UEFA law to some extent. Mm-hmm. Chelsea's got that ban. Do they want the baggage? I think they leave Chelsea out because Chelsea have the baggage. But maybe next time Chelsea is what they'll say to them.
Okay, I like it.
All right, so Spurs go in.
Do you know how I would honestly do this? I would get all the teams that like have historic rivalries and are kind of touch and go to be in this league.
Yep.
And I would have them play like a 7-game playoff series.
Yep, that's about where I am with it.
To win it. So Arsenal v Spurs.
Because my initial suggestion
Celtic
was like
v
merge
Rangers,
them.
Yeah.
And that would not go well.
Benfica v Sporting.
Yeah.
All these teams would have to play off.
I'm okay with that. We have not put them in yet. I'm going to add them now. Dortmund would now be on that list. I think you got to put them in.
Dortmund over Chelsea. Is this us just being swayed by Pulisic?
No, maybe, but I think
biggest stand in Europe.
But I think the reality is you're going to have 2 German teams in there. I do think that, and so I'm like, given the kind of bad season that Schalke have had, Leverkusen are usually in and around that conversation, but they're never at that next level.
Yeah, Leipzig kind of broke the German rules.
That is probably the one that would actually get it, though. Is Leipzig because of the money?
All right, so right now we're at Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, PSG, Juventus, Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Ajax, Porto ? Roma, Milan, Inter, Arsenal, Dortmund.
Yep.
How many teams is that?
And did you have Spurs in there too?
No, I should have written Spurs down.
I put Spurs in. That gives us 16. We've got 2 spots left.
Ooh, okay. Chelsea fans are real mad at us right now. But transfer ban, Abramovich may be selling up. I think we can defend it.
Okay.
Okay.
Chelsea would definitely be in the actual Super League, but we can leave that aside for now because they've got the ban. Yeah.
Are we being unfair on non-Barcelona, Real Madrid Spanish teams?
That's what I'm wondering.
Atletico Madrid deserve a spot? Does Sevilla deserve a spot?
I think Valencia could be in that conversation, but I think they have such financial issues right now. I think it maybe is Atleti. That probably is if you're going to add a third Spanish team, I put in Atletico.
And Diego Simeone's recent reign is what got them in there.
Yeah,
right.
I think so. Yeah. All right. So that leaves one final spot, Daryl Grove.
I mean, at Wolves, right?
So possible teams would be Celtic, Rangers. We could go back to Chelsea, even though they've got the ban. We could throw in. I mean, it's a weird season to do this because a year or two ago we'd probably have Monaco on here, given the kind of billionaire implications of that squad. They might be in there.
Marseille, historically interesting.
Exactly. But I think it's also hurt by the dominance of PSG that it makes it hard to include another French team.
True. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, agreed.
So
that's done.
18 spot. It's tough.
Is there an argument for Galatasaray just being this huge team in Turkey?
I mean, I would say that.
Yeah.
Fenerbahce are having a terrible season right now. They're in the relegation zone at one point.
Galatasaray, similar to Olympiacos, they're sort of far and away the most successful team in Turkish history.
I think it's them and Fenerbahce are right around there, with Beşiktaş third in terms of titles won. Fenerbahce are in financial trouble. Or I think Fenerbahce are in performance trouble. Beşiktaş are in financial trouble. So maybe right now it's Galatasaray, though they themselves frequently find themselves in financial trouble.
I'm writing Galatasaray.
All right, and we're going to hear about it.
From all kinds of people, right?
Yep.
Please bear in mind that this was really hard.
It was, and I really hope there wasn't. Last time we remembered Fulham at the last second when we did something like this.
Don't make it.
I'm terrified that there's one of those teams that we've left out.
I mean, we've put Ajax in, and we haven't even talked about PSV, Feyenoord, etc. I guess
Yeah,
Ajax
they know what they
historically
did. They know what they did.
They know what they did. They were not Ajax.
They were not Ajax.
Okay. I'm nervous about that, but there it is.
All right.
It's done.
It's done. It's done. We've got our 18. And if you object to our 18, then you can email Daryl at TOTALSOCCERSHOW.com.
And I guess similar to the movies, if you tweet at us, no team you love, about this, blocked.
We're going to lose a lot of people, or at least
a lot of people are
of
going to lose
responses.
us.
Yeah, exactly. One more question still remaining, plus some scouting. First, we have to talk about today's sponsor.
We have to. We get to.
We do. I think
on.
I'm butchering my words here because I'm still slightly nervous about that list we just came up with, because I felt confident when it was just the cynical money gets you into it. Once we started making it a little bit real, that's when it suddenly got real, and now I'm scared.
That's why being in charge of things is hard, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about today's sponsor, Ruffneck Scarves. That's more fun. That's more delightful, because Ruffneck Scarves is a delightful company, and they make a wonderful product, which is a lot of scarves.
A lot of scarves, including all kinds of international scarves. There is all kinds of international tournaments coming up this summer, right? You could be supporting the US Women's National Team at the Women's World Cup. You could be supporting the Dutch Women's National Team.
Yep.
I don't know your ethnicity or background.
Hoop Holland, they've got that scarf.
Hoop Holland, yeah. You've also got the Africa Cup of Nations. You've got Copa America. You've got the Gold Cup. Probably some tournaments I'm forgetting. There's probably like an under-21 European Championships or something.
There's the U20 World Cup.
There's the U20 World Cup in May, right? That's coming soon. If you want to support a national team at a major tournament, go to ruffneckscarves.com, click on international scarves. I almost guarantee, any national team you want to support, they will have a scarf.
Here's a sad reality. Okay, if you're going to a bar at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, might be a sad story. If you're wearing a scarf of a team and you're watching a soccer game, now you're a fan, and it's justified.
It's an excuse to do things during the day.
That scarf. You put that scarf on, suddenly you're a fan, and suddenly other behaviors are now excused. It's okay to sit there and watch 3 hours of soccer. He's got a scarf on, so therefore, she's been here for 4 hours. She's had a lot of drinks.
She's wearing a scarf,
but she's wearing a scarf and she's watching soccer.
And it's the summer.
Clearly, she's just a fan.
She can't just have a cold neck.
Exactly.
She's wearing it because she's a soccer fan.
Exactly.
Don't cut her off.
No, I don't think you should. And it's worth noting again, they really have such a massive variety of international scarves that if you want to support a random team, you could just scroll down, find one, and then see what tournament they're in. There's a good chance one of them, that country, is going to be in some form of some tournament somewhere.
Yeah, you just see which scarf you like, which say African nation scarf you like the best, buy it and support that team at the Africa Cup of Nations this summer.
And I also kind of like the idea because
We're full of great ideas today.
I think we are. Because you
Day
and I
drinking,
also,
randomly buying scarves.
Yeah, the best ideas. It's what everyone does. It's us and 90-year-olds, I think. But I do like the idea of, because you and I aren't like necessarily big on gambling. The only times
Quite the opposite.
The only times I've ever enjoyed it was when we were in Turkey for the 2012 Euros, and we did the thing where it's like you put in $5 and you get 3 names, and then whoever scores first wins. Like
to me, that's fun gambling where it's just you and your friends. There's no house taking all the money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I would say that it could be fun to like randomly pick, say like an African team from African Cup of Nations, and then you buy that scarf, and now you have a vested interest, and they better perform because you're wearing their scarf. And it is kind of great because if, say, maybe you pick Cameroon or Egypt, or you just decide you're going to root for them, and you buy that scarf, now the scarf makes it seem like you're a legit fan. And then suddenly, oh, you're not just a fair weather fan. You've got a scarf.
I don't know if Ruffneck Scarves will listen to this episode, but here's a free idea for them. They should do that lottery.
Yep.
Where everybody, if you buy a certain amount of scarves, the one that wins the tournament,
The mystery scarf?
you get a refund. So you could get a free
I like
you
that
get a
idea.
refund if your team wins.
I like that idea a lot.
It's the Ruffneck Scarves lottery.
Because I think...
To be very clear, I think for legal reasons I have to say, this is actually not happening. This is just an idea I have that I think Ruffneck Scarves should do.
It's a smart idea because if people are like me, which not saying all people are, but I feel like there's a few out there who would do this, be really enthusiastic about it, forget. And even if their team won and they had the scarf, I'd be like, it seems like a thing. Again, it seems like a whole thing right there. There you go.
So we can't guarantee a free scarf. We can guarantee 20% off.
We can.
Right? So it's 80% of a free scarf? 20% of a free scarf. Yeah. Maths only works one way.
We're so good at math.
20% off if you use the discount code TOTALSOCCERSHOW, all one word, at ruffneckscarves.com. That works on any scarf that you can see in the Ruffneck Scarf shop.
It does. And then remember that if you're a fan of USL, they're going to do pro rels. Says Daryl and Taylor, so get a USL scarf. Major League Soccer, the NCAA, the U.S. Soccer Federation. You can get all those different types of scarves. So thank you to Ruffneck Scarves for continuing to sponsor the Total Soccer Show and for providing so many wonderful scarves.
Next question, final question,
Yeah.
is from someone whose real name is not Buffalo Mike, but Buffalo Mike is asking us, could you please waste a few minutes of my auditory life, we won't waste it, we'll make it worthwhile, by sharing your thoughts about the news coming out of Chicago right now? I'm going to assume this is the Chicago Fire move back downtown to Soldier Field and possibly rebrand news.
Yes. Okay, and I've done some reading. I think I have a basic grasp on things. I should say I am not a Chicago Fire fan. I'm not a Chicago Fire beat writer. I don't have like a vested interest. So I'm fairly confident that I've got this right, but I'm sure there's a lot more nuance to this.
So you have the story, but you've done the research here. I haven't, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think one thing, I believe I am correct in saying this, the way like I kind of saw this, or maybe the way I read it and interpreted it, was that the moving back to Soldier Field and changing the name were intertwined. That it was this sort of
like... Is that not the case?
I don't believe it is. I think it's that they're basically trying to get out of this lease that they've kind of locked themselves into at SeatGeek Stadium in Bridgeview, Illinois.
Because for people who don't know, it's really far. Fans don't want to go because it's such a distance, and they have this long-term lease that they kind of can't get out of.
I think Paul Tenorio in his Athletic article noted that it was like an hour for public transportation, about 45 minutes by car, especially because there's so much traffic. We experienced that when we were there both times. So the issue is that basically...
I mean, that's because we were staying kind of far out.
Well, there's that. But basically the issue here is that they signed a lease in 2005. It runs until 2036. Andrew Hauptmann...
To when now?
Yeah, exactly. Until 2036. Andrew Hauptmann, the majority owner, bought the club in 2007, so after that lease had been signed, and I think was not pleased, but is now kind of saying, I don't have the money to get us out of this deal. The minority owner, Joe Mansueto, who owns 49%, he upped that percentage, I think, in July of 2018. I think he is the one, if you listen to some of the rumors and the leaks that have come out about this, he is the one who's basically going to foot that bill. He is a billionaire, I think, several times over, who's very involved in Chicago real estate. So I think he is kind of helping foot the bill to buy them out, to make it so that they can move back to Soldier Field.
So it's crazy expensive to buy out of the lease, but to someone who is a billionaire many times over, it's doable.
It is.
Yeah.
And this is where it's worth noting that Major League Soccer is on that lease as well. They were a co-signer because this was kind of the practice at the time when this lease was signed was Major League Soccer would co-sign, to give a little bit more backing, but now they're involved in this too. And they also have a vested interest. This is a very big point that Paul Tenorio notes is that they have a new media rights deal coming up in 2021. Chicago has underperformed both in the city. The Chicago Fire have struggled to get their attendance numbers up. They've struggled to get success on the field. at least very recently. And then nationally, because they don't have that big of a draw, they're not really getting the attention that you would expect the third largest media market in the country to get.
That's it. It's important to Major League Soccer, the Chicago Fire do well.
It's our third show of the day. It's fine. You can say Chicago.
Because they're a major media market.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that is what they're working on there to get them back to Soldier Field. And I don't think there's been much objection to that. Bridgeview is, I think, closer to a lot of the suburbs. So if you're trying to attract suburban families, now you're making them go into the city. Maybe there's a little bit of consternation there.
All suburban families should go into the city.
But if you're going to be called Chicago, you should be in Chicago. Yeah, I am a believer in that idea. Uh-huh. Not just for every city. Like if you're DC, you shouldn't have to play in Chicago, but you get the point. The second issue is, I think, the bigger one, which is that this kind of...
all fans are on board with the move to Soldier Field.
Yes.
Right? There's probably someone who lives right next to Bridgeview who's like, no, stay.
That's probably true. And if you're in Bridgeview next to a stadium, I apologize. But the larger issue, the one that's gotten a lot more attention and has been the cause for concern for a lot more fans, is the rebrand. Mm-hmm. That Nelson Rodriguez, I think even last year, talked about how they're interested in a refresh, how they want to kind of put a new face on the club, they're a franchise that things haven't gone very well lately, and so they want to kind of turn it around. And I think he talked about at the time, the badge is very iconic. By the way, sorry, I'm talking a lot.
No, I'm listening.
All right. The badge is iconic. The colors are iconic.
I'm sorry for you because your voice.
Oh, it's all good. And so he kind of hinted maybe we'll tune it up a little bit. We'll change things a little bit. Maybe we'll change the color scheme a tiny bit. Now it's come out that it seems like it was reported in those leaks that it's essentially official, that they will change the name to Chicago City FC. Nelson Rodriguez...
FC?
Yes, FC, as what I've seen.
Not that it really matters. I'm just interested, in who does what. Yeah.
Well, it matters. It matters to me, and it's a nuanced thing. But if it is FC, it matters to me because
is it football at least.
Probably not.
No?
But it matters to me because I saw an interview that Nelson Rodriguez did with, I forget what local Chicago paper, I apologize. But he said one of the reasons why they're looking at changing the name is that he gets frustrated because there's no soccer in the name right now, that people, I think he's had an experience of saying, I work with the Chicago Fire, I work for Chicago Fire, and people say, oh, I like that show. And I think other people have had that experience.
I like that service when my house is ablaze.
Yeah, exactly. And I've talked about that before, that if you Google Chicago Fire, you get the TV show or you get the disaster, not the team. So I get that idea, except that if you want it to be soccer, why are you naming it football club? That doesn't. It's a tiny
maybe he's
thing.
not. He's not specific on that, right? He's more it's not even associated with the sport.
Yeah. Maybe, but I think it sort of. That does kind of make his logic fall down a little bit for me. It genuinely does.
Can't he just change his business card or change the way he introduces himself and say, hey, I work with Chicago Fire Soccer Club?
Or you could just call it, Chicago Fire Soccer Club. There's your rebrand right there. And
this is a Nelson Rodriguez problem.
And really what you could do if you really want to change things and make it very different without necessarily enraging the fans, which is what you will do if you change that name.
Fans are upset. Right? I haven't talked to Nicole Hack about this because this happened after we saw her, but I've seen Nicole Hack, who, big Chicago Fire Section 8 fan, being basically upset about losing the history of the team.
Yeah.
Right?
And this is where I was, as an outsider, I have not had the passionate relationship with DC United, even with the Richmond Kickers, to be honest. If they change the name, I know there are a lot of people who would be furious about that. Not saying they will, but I'm just saying as an example, I don't know if I would necessarily be that upset about it.
Okay with it, yeah.
But I was trying to think about why would you be, and I was thinking about the people who are in the Red Army, and I was realizing that they've been there when there were 8 people in the Red Army. They have been there supporting that team because it's their team, because it's their organization, the team that they support. And if suddenly you've just kind of rebrand and changed the entire name because it's more keeping with what's happening right now, suddenly you're supporting a company. You're supporting a brand. And it's not the team that you rooted for. It's now you're a fashionable thing, which isn't what you've bought into.
What about the argument of a team like Sporting KC, who did this same thing, right?
Yeah.
They moved stadiums. Beautiful new stadium at the time, beautiful still now. Completely changed from Kansas City Wiz or Wizards at the time to Sporting KC, changed the uniforms, changed everything, and it's been really successful.
Yeah, it has. I don't
hear any Kansas fans complaining about what happened.
That's honestly, that's what I was going to say. Is one thing is I don't know. I really I wasn't as actively engaged in Major League Soccer when that happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there were people who loved that logo and loved that team. I think there were some people who loved it ironically. I think there were some people who loved it because it was an interesting retro design.
Yeah.
But it certainly was not a thing that if you saw it now, you'd be like, yeah, that was designed in the 90s or in the early 90s. It stood out that way.
It wasn't a good name, right? It was a very 70s kind of name.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what the 90s were like.
But I also don't know what their attendance is and their support has historically been. I remember
in a baseball stadium is what it's historically been.
Yeah,
I guess Arrowhead forever.
Yeah, which I think is also a football stadium. Thank you very
excuse
much.
me.
But like I remember, what was his name? Digital Takawera. Like I remember him playing for the Kansas City Wizards, and but I don't know if that was in front of a packed stadium or a slightly packed stadium or a not packed stadium.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that was a thing where they needed to rebrand to like bring themselves into the modern era, and people kind of got attracted to them as a result. What I would say is that if you want to rebrand and you don't want to make everybody mad, be Chicago Fire Football Club and be CFFC. That's all you have to do. Put CFFC on the crest. And then you can still have like a fire in the background. And I think that maybe satisfies everybody because you're still the Chicago Fire, even if you've changed it up a little bit. Maybe it doesn't. People will just be mad no matter what. But I do think that's where they're kind of running into a lot of not obstruction, but they're running into a lot of reaction that I think they didn't expect.
Yeah.
And I think
they don't have goodwill to burn either, right? So they should be really careful.
And this is the other thing that I kind of didn't know until reading is that this is sort of a disaster of their own making. Again, 2005 to 2036. They've signed themselves into a 30-year lease. Like, that's not good business. They have traded away draft picks. They haven't made smart acquisitions on the field. And it feels a little bit like the ownership has, like, not trying to go with a fire pun here, but like have burned down the house by negligence and then been like, well, somebody burned down the house, so we've got to rebuild a monstrosity. Like, it sort of is them being like, well, things are bad and they need to change without recognizing that they're the ones who made things bad.
I mean, I actually think there's a good middle ground here where they could just like change the name slightly to like Chicago Fire Soccer Club or Football Club.
Yeah.
And do a bit of a rebrand, like freshen up the logo. Maybe don't change the color scheme of the uniforms, but like just talk to Adidas and make sure you do a really good job with the next uniforms.
Yeah.
And do it that way. You can refresh without actually redesigning everything, right?
Yep.
You don't have to be like the cigarette company here that is now called Altria because they don't want to be associated with cigarettes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yes, I'm with you completely. The only other thing that like I don't know and I do wonder is if there is more going on behind the scenes than we realize. And I don't mean obviously there is whenever there's business, but what I mean is that like I don't know if like the lease with Bridgeview right now, because it's the town of Bridgeview, I don't know if in that, like I think it says something like like a team called the Chicago Fire must play here, and I don't know if it's literally that they have to change the name in order to be able to move.
Do you think, I mean, if they could just do that loophole, they could just get out of the contract by changing their identity? I mean, sort of like going undercover?
Then that would make their life way easier.
Yeah, but there's no way the contract's that badly written. Right?
I would guess not, no. But I do just wonder if there's maybe some other stuff that we don't know about, or maybe people more in the know do know about, and that's why there's more of a linked connection here between moving to Soldier Field and having to change the name.
Okay. We will see what happens.
We certainly will.
We will see what happens.
I'm guessing we'll hear more about it.
Certainly. All right. So we have players that you'll be hearing a lot more about in the future, but also right now.
All right.
We have some scouting for you.
We sure do. Starting off with some promising young Americans. Andrew Baird scouting Josh Perez, the 21-year-old American winger for LAFC. He's back with LAFC for now.
All right.
Perez was recalled from Phoenix Rising to help cover for injuries to Adama Diomande, Lee Win, and Andre Horta, all first-team regulars for Bob Bradley, who were unavailable this past weekend. As a result, Perez made his season debut for LAFC this past weekend, playing 24 minutes in a 2-0 win over FC Cincinnati. He was actively involved almost from the minute he stepped on the field and repeatedly put himself in good positions.
All right. Zachary Lindquist is scouting Jackson Ewell, the 22-year-old American midfielder for the San Jose Earthquakes. I know what Jackson Ewell did this past weekend because we talked about it on the MLS review show with Joe Lowry. Zachary says, Ewell was involved in 2 of the goals in San Jose's 2-1 win over Houston. He attempted to track Elise through the middle on a cancha, which he inevitably lost, but then hit a 25-yard curler to equalise. He was often wide open in zone 14, that's the top of the area attacking midfield zone, after making late runs from midfield, but San Jose mostly opted to play the ball low and inside, the one exception being Ewell's goal.
There we are. That's a good thing. Justin Hansen.
Don't get in a land war in Asia, don't get in a foot race with Albert Elise.
That's definitely good rules. Well done. Justin Hansen scouting front. Kessie, 22-year-old Ivorian midfielder for AC Milan. I've been watching a lot more Serie A lately, and most of the commentators call him Kessie and not Kessier.
Right.
So I'm going to go with Kessie.
They're just all wrong.
Yeah, that could be. Kessie scored a late penalty in Milan's 1-0 win over Lazio on Saturday, stepping up and coolly slotting it into the bottom right corner. He now has 5 goals and an assist in 28 league matches for 4th place Milan. Kessie will also likely feature for the Ivory Coast as they prepare for the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations. They've been drawn into Group D of that tournament with Morocco, South Africa, and Namibia.
There's 4 Scottish scarf she could buy. Brendan Lanehart is scouting Cam Lindley, the 21-year-old American midfielder from Memphis 901 FC on loan from Orlando City. Brendan says Cam Lindley has finally been loaned to the USL.
Huzzah.
He had not yet seen the field for Orlando, so hopefully that will change now he's with Memphis.
Why do they say huzzah and not hooray?
I'm not sure.
Ask your people. Okay. Jaron Wright scouting Justin Glad.
Because they're posh, that's why. Maybe like commoners, working class people said hooray, so posh horse riding people had to say huzzah.
That makes sense to me. Jaron Wright scouting Justin Glad.
Guillotine them all.
22-year-old American center back for Real Salt Lake. Or maybe not, as this scouting report will indicate. Glad got 59 minutes with Real Monarchs in a 3-1 win over Reno 1868 FC. He seems to be on his way to a quicker recovery than expected after breaking his toe just prior to the start of the season. He was originally not expected back until, I believe, mid-May.
Michael Curry is scouting Haji Wright, the 21-year-old American forward for Schalke. Michael says Wright has seen his first-team chances fade away. Schalke's attacking options have regained fitness, plus there was him not being great the times he played.
Also that.
He hasn't featured in a matchday squad for the senior team since February 23rd and doesn't look to be in the plans of Schalke's interim manager. But he did start and score for Schalke's reserves this weekend, so there's that.
I think he may have also. I think I have a vague recollection of reading like yesterday or the day before that he scored a hat trick in another reserve game.
Oh, maybe.
Be wrong on that one.
Yeah. No, we need an updated report, Michael.
I guess we'll find out. Last report comes from Philip Andriani, scouting Andre Green, the 20-year-old English winger for Aston Villa. Andre finally got a statistic! Exclamation point. With Villa losing 1-0 to Sheffield Wednesday, he got a sliding assist for the first goal, and Villa would go on to win 3-1.
The best kind of assist.
He was then an unused sub for the midweek game against Rotherham.
Oh, well.
Yeah, not quite as good.
Or at least he's not injured, because that was the Andre Green problem.
Well, there's also
for
that.
a very long time.
Hooray!
Thank you to everybody for the scouting reports. Thank you to everybody for the questions. Thank you to everybody who supports the Total Soccer Show. If you go to totalsoccershow.com/join, you can sign up to support us financially with a monthly contribution. $5 a month or more, we guarantee we give you a young player to scout. $10 a month or more, we guarantee to answer a listener question per month on the Total Soccer Show, provided it's not crazy.
Provided it's not crazy.
I will say one tip I want to give is
or a paragraph that ends in "What do you think?"
Yes, we do get occasional questions of like, could you pick a starting 11 of like best in the world or whatever? Mm-hmm. That's a whole show.
Yep.
That's not just one question. We just can't answer those questions because it's far too many.
Yeah, I mean, you heard us kind of hem and haw a little bit through picking 18 teams.
Yeah, that was a tough one to do as well, right?
It was.
Okay. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. And we, or at least Taylor, with some pre-recorded contributions from me, will talk to you again next week.